up all, welcome back to the Propagandist channel. It's time for another Retrospective RWBY Volume 1 Let's Watch. So, in the previous 3 episodes we started off, of course, through chapters 1 and got through to 4. Now we're getting on to chapter 5 in this particular episode. So, we of course are going to be joining our characters in the Emerald Forest as they go about their little starting mission that they've been given by the Beacon teachers. And, I was, kind of interested to get into this one as well, because these episodes in particular, around about this point of Volume 1, I always think have some great little character moments in terms of the development, particularly of, RWBY, Weiss, for instance. So they're quite fascinating in that regard. Knowing me, I'll sort of point out elements of what's happening as we go along, and just outline some thoughts on that as I've been doing for a lot of these episodes. Another just thought actually I'd been having just before I started this recording session, and it's not to do with RWBY Volume 1. It was actually more sort of inspired by the Dust Queen Chapter 1 reaction video that I did not too long ago, a few weeks back. It was in that video, wasn't it, that I mentioned, this idea that part of the future of RWBY as a franchise may well be in sort of big fandom productions, that kind of thing. Especially, given that obviously with Viz Media owning RWBY now at the moment, there's not really been any further news as of when I record this. Not that I'm aware of anyway. But I just want to sort of revisit that idea just very briefly, because I know it's not, like I said, connected to what we're actually doing in this video, but I just think, as an interesting topic about RWBY more generally, it's something worth discussing. I was actually just thinking about this point again recently that I made in that video about how, part of the future of RWBY may be the works of fan productions, like people working on Dust Queen, that kind of thing. And I say that because I was actually watching a load of Super Eyepatch Wolf videos recently, and Super Eyepatch Wolf is a great channel. His video essays are, I always thought, very, very thought-provoking and just very humorous, very interesting to listen to. And it's funny because, some of the topics he covers in those video essays of his are things that I would never have dabbled in myself. Things like Garfield, for instance, or Sonic the Hedgehog. And but what was kind of fascinating about watching some of those videos of his is how fandoms of big franchises and other popular media can really sometimes take those media, especially if they're going through moments of, how should I say, apparent decline, where maybe, the official franchise isn't doing too well, or doesn't seem to be going anywhere, or moving on anywhere, and how those fandoms can actually sort of take that and build it up, and actually they can become sort of the future direction of that franchise in terms of them outputting fan-made media that is really, really good. And so the video in question that I was actually watching on his channel that got me thinking about that was one of his Simpsons videos, because I never thought I'd sort of be watching video essays about The Simpsons in 2025, but here I am, of course, and I was watching one of them recently about how elements of The Simpsons fandom, for example, are fascinating in that they've created all sorts of fan-made media based around the franchise, which is really, really awesome. But it got me thinking as well that there was a similar thing with Sonic the Hedgehog. If you watch Super Eyepatch Wolf's video about Sonic the Hedgehog and the bizarre modern reality of it, there's something very similar in there about how elements of the fandom have really shown that, through their love for Sonic the Hedgehog, they can create these amazing fan-made works like comics, fan-made games, etc., etc. And so it got me kind of thinking about RWBY as well, and how, that's kind of what we're seeing to an extent, I feel, with RWBY at the same time. There are these fan studios, fan teams that are now putting together RWBY content of their own. And that's not to say, anything probably of the legions of fanfic writers, for instance, who've probably written very, very good fan works on places like fanfiction.net, AO3, or whatever it's called. I'll admit I've never really dabbled in those communities, so I don't know too much, but I'd be surprised if there wasn't a plethora of RWBY fanfiction out there, including some really well-written stuff. Who knows, maybe that's something I should look into one day, maybe here on the Propagandist channel as well. But yeah, it's just a general thing that I just thought was interesting. Like I say, just watching those Super Eye Patch World videos and that particular theme about fandom sometimes can really pioneer the franchises and take them forward when those franchises are going through maybe moments where their future is uncertain or they're going through rocky periods or whatever. I just thought it was interesting then when you think about that theme and then you think about RWBY as well. But yeah, just something that was in my head that I thought was really interesting, and I just wanted to kind of abstract it, get it out there. I'm sure people in the comments probably will have thoughts of their own on that, so feel free to engage with that topic as you see fit, in essence, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, so on to chapter 5. I don't think we'll delay any further, so let's just get to it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here we are, about to get straight into it, and you already see that Nora scene there, where she's dancing around. Alright, chapter 5, ladies and gentlemen, let's throw ourselves in. Opening credits as usual, but that's fine. I'll just sort of leave it slightly quiet for the moment, just so I can talk over it. But one thing I just actually didn't mention in the intro there, which I think is just worth me maybe very quickly touching on, is just looking at this episode. This is about, 14 minutes in total, this one, by the looks of it, roughly. So it might be the case, actually, that we could get a couple of chapters in this episode. So we might do that, ladies and gentlemen, kind of like we did with chapters 2 and 3. Because that way it means, there's a fairly substantive video for us. It depends how often I pause throughout this to have a conversation about various things that are coming up. But I think, chapters 5 and 6, as far as I'm aware, that's just covering the battle in the Emerald Forest, isn't it? I think. So, in that case, we may very well, like I say, combine these two together into a nice big substantive reaction video. I'm sure that's people what. I'm sure that's what people might be interested in seeing potentially. We'll see. Who knows? Right, volume up. There we go.
RWBY! I told you this was a terrible idea! We're fine! Stop worrying! I am so far beyond worrying! In a good way? In a bad way! In a very bad way! Well, why don't we just jump? What are you, insane?
We never actually see how they get onto the Talon of the Nevermore, but
insufferable little red!
Blake,
somehow it happened.
What should we do?
Oh, that bit there. Sorry, wait. Already pausing. Just go back to Blake a moment there. Isn't it the thing that people say that with Blake in this scene here, you sort of like see her... Hang on, can I actually get it timed about? If you watch like her bow up there.
Blake, did you hear that? What should we do?
See? You see that little flick? The little hint that she's actually got cat ears. There's all that foreshadowing there.
What was that?
Hey, RWBY.
Did your sister just fall from the sky?
Aw, it's broken. Ew.
Nora? Please, don't ever do that again.
It's funny how, Volume 1 obviously had that much more cartoonish vibe to it.
I'm queen of the castle. I'm queen of the castle.
Nora!
Then you get to Volume 2 and obviously
Did that girl just ride in on an Ursa?
things start to get a little dark, but still fairly cheery on the whole. Then of course you get to Volume 3 and the proverbial brown stuff hits the fan.
Whoa!
RWBY!
RWBY?
Yang! Nora!
Did she just run all the way here with a Deathstalker on her tail?
I can't take it anymore! Could everyone just chill out for 2 seconds before something crazy happens again?
See Nora in the background in that shot.
Yang?
Wait, what's she doing there? Sorry, I know Wise is in trouble at the moment, but hold on. What's with Nora doing the weird
Yang?
binoculars? This here? What's this about? Never noticed that before. What's that about? Just Nora being Nora, I guess.
How could you leave me? I said jump.
She's gonna fall.
She'll be fine.
She's falling.
Does Here's your moment, John.
Yeah.
Just dropping in. Oh God.
Much more cartoony vibe.
My
It's swelteringly
hero.
hot here in the UK at the moment. I'm not going to say what temperature it is because, you know, all the people
Great,
out there
the
who
gang's
live
all
in
here.
much
Now
hotter
we can die
places
together.
Not if I can help it.
will be thinking, for God's sake,
Ruby, wait!
British people are pathetic in summer. And yes, we are. Okay, this is a great character moment. This is.
Don't worry. Totally fine.
You'll see. I'll probably pause in a second.
Ruby!
So, it will happen at any moment.
Ruby, get out of there!
I'm trying.
Ruby!
And there we go.
You are so childish. Wise? And dim-witted, and hyperactive, and don't even get me started on your fighting style. And I suppose I can be a bit difficult, but if we're going to do this, we're going to have to do this together. So if you quit trying to show off, I'll be nicer.
I'm not trying to show off. I want you to know I can do this.
You're fine.
So, let's take a pause, ladies and gentlemen, on that little shot of Ruby sort of leaning in, as though she's looking at me expectantly for what I'm about to say. That's a great little character moment there. And I think a lot of people obviously focus on Weiss in that scene because of the fact that, you know, she admits, sort of for, you know, the first time that she can be difficult to work with. So, showing a bit of self-awareness and, you know, a lot of people obviously probably note that and say, you know, this is the start of Weiss starting that slow process of chilling out a little bit. Pun not intended, given that there's all this ice in the background. But I also think it's a great moment for Ruby as well, because her line, "I'm not trying to show off, I just want you to know that I can do this," I think is very interesting and revealing from a characterization point of view, because obviously she is the youngest character in this group of people. She's, what, 15, whereas they're all about 17. And so, you know, I suppose really the kind of window we're getting into her character there is that, you know, she does feel maybe self-conscious to an extent and feels the need that she has to kind of prove herself in the eyes of her peers, which I think is always an interesting life experience that a lot of people go through. You know, that point in life where people, usually when they're younger, particularly when I think you're a teenager, for instance, I imagine this is, well, I say I imagine, I know this is one of those things that can be very, it can be something that, you know, you can end up sort of wrapping yourself around the axle about, so to speak. Particularly when you're a teenager, you know, and you've been sort of brought up to be a bit of a people pleaser, or, you know, you've been brought up in environments where you've been told, you know, you have to excel, you have to do well in order to set yourself up for life, that kind of thing. I think it can be very easy to become so kind of focused on your own performance that you're very scared of how other people will perceive you, and you're worried about failure, you're worried about that kind of thing. And so as a result, you know, your behaviour sometimes, you start to kind of do things which can be a bit rash, or perhaps you start to maybe get to a point where you look at offers of help and you think, I know, I appreciate that, but I've got to try and be able to do this myself, and that kind of thing. But what I think Ruby obviously is learning here is that, you know, that attitude actually is something you have to kind of unlearn, so to speak. As you get older, you have to sort of realise that actually, you know, you're part of a team now and there are other people there, and it's okay to ask for help, and you don't need to necessarily prove yourself to everybody, and actually, you know, you should focus on being a team player and all that. And I think this kind of moment here is one of the sort of, well, one of the starting moments perhaps where, following on from the argument Ruby has had with Weiss in the previous chapter, I think it was, maybe she's starting to perhaps realise that actually, you know, she doesn't have to do everything herself. She doesn't have to perform like that. She has to, you know, work with the other people, basically. Just an interesting thought that I think is worth putting a pin in, mentioning at this stage. Right, 3, 2, 1, resume.
Whoa!
Quite the sight.
So happy you're okay.
Guys, that thing's circling back. What are we gonna do?
Look, there's no sense in dilly-dallying. Our objective is right in front of us.
She's right. Our mission is to grab an artifact and make it back to the cliffs. There's no point in fighting these things.
You know
Run and
what?
live. That is an idea I can get behind.
Yes, let's pause there as well. I think just another thought, just adding on really to what I said a moment ago there, is Ruby sort of realising that, you know, there's a bigger picture. When you've got a mission, you always have to try and keep your objective at the forefront. You have to think strategically, ladies and gentlemen. That's something, you know, which I think a lot of people sometimes have to learn, which is the difference. Sorry, I'm getting into kind of very academic speech here. Particularly, you know, someone who teaches on a lot of courses to do with things like military history and strategy, that kind of thing. But, you know, there's a difference between thinking tactically and thinking strategically. Thinking tactically is thinking that you have to fight every battle and win it. Thinking strategically is when you realise that not every battle has to be fought, especially if it actually doesn't get you any closer to the objective that you're ultimately trying to do, to achieve. So, little moment for Ruby right there, I do think, ladies and gentlemen. 3, 2, 1, resume. Knights, okay, yeah. And, okay, so Juniper goes for the rooks. I think I asked that question last time, didn't I?
Time we left.
Did I? I can't remember.
Right. Let's go.
It's been a week or two since my last recording session.
What is it?
Nothing.
She's just proud of her baby sister. Okay, maybe actually Chapter 5 is just the remainder of the Emerald Forest stuff. Chapter 6 therefore might be getting on to more of Jean's stuff. Well, we'll see. We may include them together. This and the next chapter, or potentially split them, I don't know. Depends what I think works better.
Well, that's great.
Oh man, run!
Nora, distracted.
You know, this move that the Nevermore does, sorry, I'm just going back a second. This move that Nevermore does, where it flings its like spear-like feathers down towards the ground to try and attack people, was this ever showcased again after Volume 1, this ability that the Nevermore has? I don't think it was it? Or was it? I feel like I don't remember this ever coming about, unless my memory's just been faulty. Yeah, I wonder why they never had a Nevermore. Never had a Nevermore do a move like this again. Never had a Nevermore sounds like the title of some sort of song or something. Who knows? Right, 3, 2, 1. And Nora's amazing grenade launcher. Now they're working more as a team.
Go, go!
Man, we gotta get over there. They need help.
Let's do this.
Yeah, but I can't make that jump.
Don't worry about that.
Whoa!
Nora's got you covered.
Oh wait! No, 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 no!
This is probably the moment really that a lot of the fandom fell in love with Nora. Don't. You know, I have thoughts about this fight scene, but I'm not going to pause for the moment, because otherwise I'm interrupting the flow
It's
of it.
tougher than it looks. Then let's hit it with
So I'll pause once the fight scene is over, and then give my thoughts on it. I wonder how long it took to animate that. The collapsing tower. Nevermore busts through it.
None of this is working.
Ah, here we go. Red Like Roses Part 2. Great tune.
I have a plan.
Cover me!
We gotta move.
Spine breaking. Well, he's all protected, but hey.
Nora, nail it.
Heads up!
That too, probably a moment where everyone fell in love with Nora.
Couldn't stand another minute.
Definitely some thoughts on this fight scene. I'll get to in a moment.
Of course you would come up with this idea.
Think you can make the shot?
Can I? Of course I can!
Do you even need to ask, Ruby? Here you go. Off with his head. Right, here's the point to pause, ladies and gentlemen. As promised, this fight scene. You know, I imagine there's probably lots of people on YouTube who have made compilations, so like top 5 or top 10 lists, whatever they're called, of RWBY fight sequences in terms of, you know, what do they think are some of the best combat scenes in the entirety of the franchise. And I think if I was to make a video like that, I feel like this would be one of them that I would include. Because I just feel like this fight scene was very iconic in the way it played out. This, I think, was kind of... I'm assuming it was Monty who animated this. And, you know, because Monty always had that thing of basically making the fighting almost like they're dancing, in a sense, in time with music. And so you've got, obviously, Red Like Roses Part 2 going on in the background here. And everything that happens feel like it's very much timed with the music. And as a result, it flows really, really well. And what you end up with is just this fight scene that's really fast-paced, pounding, really, really good. At least in my eyes, anyway. So, yeah, I would absolutely say this is probably a very iconic fight scene in RWBY. More so than a lot of the other ones that we have in Volume 1. I think this one probably is the standout combat sequence of Volume 1, for me personally. That's not to say there aren't other good ones. The fight in the docks later on in the volume against Roman is also a pretty good one, especially, you know, when you get Sun involved in that one. But yeah, this one I think is the most iconic of Volume 1. Right, 3, 2, 1, resume. I'm starting to think I should have put my fan on in the background for this video because I am sweating up a storm, given how warm it is here in the UK at the moment.
Wow.
Good job.
Well, that was a thing.
Russell Thrush, Carden Winchester, Dove Bronzewing, Sky Lark. The four of you retrieved the Black Bishop pieces. From this day forward, you will work together as Team Cardinal.
The team we don't
led
like.
by Carden Winchester. Jean Arc, Lai Ren, Kira Nikos, Nora Valkyrie. The four of you retrieve the White Rook pieces. From this day forward, you will work together as Team Juniper. Led by Jean Arc.
Huh?
Led by?
Congratulations, young man.
He saw something in you, John.
And finally, Blake Belladonna, Ruby Rose, Weiss Schnee, and Yang Xiao Long. The four of you retrieve the White Knight pieces. From this day forward, you will work together as Team Ruby. Led by Ruby Rose.
I'm so proud of you!
It looks like things are shaping up to be an interesting year.
There's something very impactful about that little scene. I don't know, I found it impactful. It's just a combination of music and everything makes it quite a fun little emotional scene. Right, Roman, what are you up to? So is that patch on the map there? Sorry, if I just go back a moment to that map, so you can see, well, actually, hang on, the map will come up actually in a second, won't it? I'm sure they have another shot of it in a sec.
Open it.
Dust crystals.
We're gonna need more men.
Yeah, here. Oh, it is Patch. Yeah, Patch, the little island where Ruby and Yang originally come from. Hang on, there's probably more actually on that map to see, isn't there? Let me just see if we can get a better look at it. What it actually says. So it says like upper class up here, so I guess that's like the richer part of Vale. Forever Fall. It's like the forests and things, yeah, the wider continent. Agricultural district, residential district, commercial district, industrial, dumb cops down there. Okay, sure, yeah. It's interesting, obviously, that there essentially appears to be sort of like two rivers in the Kingdom of Vale, which flow through it before eventually converging and then opening out into the sea. Did they ever give names to the two rivers? I know this is a random aside. A bit of a remnant geography and all that. Geography lesson. I don't know. Maybe that's something that comes up in a World of Remnant episode or something. As usual, you know, I think I mentioned last time, but if there are any comments you have about World of Remnant episodes, where they can be watched, and the order to watch them in, and also when to actually watch them, i.e. should I watch certain ones at certain points after particular episodes, please do you know, leave your comments and all that, because that would probably be very, very helpful. Because I think I've said previously, I've seen some of the World of Remnant episodes, but I don't think I've watched all of them. So some of them might be some of them might be blind Let's Watches, which would be quite good. Right, resume in 3, 2, 1, go.
We're gonna need more men.
I said go, not that there's really anything left in this here episode. I would love to see more of Patch in Ruby. And maybe more of the Kingdom of Vale as well. But, you know, it is what it is. Well, that was chapter 5. What I'm going to do, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, just let that music play out. Now, as I say, is I'm just going to take a jump cut here. I'm just going to check how long the recording has been so far, because, like I say, if it's you know, fairly long, counting obviously the moments I've paused within there, then actually we may just make this chapter 5, this reaction. But if it's not too long, then maybe I'll also do chapter 6. But it depends also on my concluding thoughts as well, because obviously I've got a few things just to reiterate from my reaction to that. So give me a second, everybody. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're back in. So I just checked time. So the reaction of the episode itself was somewhere just under 25 minutes. counting obviously the sort of 4 or 5 minutes I spent just by way of an intro, that will bring it to about 29 minutes. And come to think of it, you know, obviously my concluding thoughts on chapter 5 will probably extend it out further. So I was sort of debating, should I include chapter 6 in this episode? And I've actually decided no, I'm not going to, just because that might, well, it obviously would expand video, which isn't necessarily bad in and of itself. You know, I'm happy to do that for sometimes. But I also was just thinking, actually, I feel like, you know, we've reached kind of a point in Volume 1 here where sort of that initial sub-chapter of, you know, Team RWBY forming and having their first sort of team-based combat encounter, that sort of sub-chapter is now done, and now we're moving on to some more character development, particularly of Weiss and of other characters in subsequent chapters. So actually, I think it logically, at least in my head, makes sense to maybe split here and actually do chapter 6 onward in the next episode. So I will do that. So apologies if that disappoints, ladies and gentlemen, since I've been sort of saying early on, you know, we might do chapter 6, we may, only to then suddenly decide, actually, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, partly also the reason for that is because I'm getting very hot and sweaty here in my room. Like I say, it's summer here in the UK. The weather at the moment, though, outside is cloudy and grey. But it's that sort of, you know, very muggy, humid, very hot, sticky summer heat, where it's probably going to, you know, it's probably going to rain at some point. There's probably going to be a thunderstorm, but it's just annoying, you know. And the temperature outside is probably, if I had to look at my thermostat, sorry, not my thermostat, my thermometer, it probably would be something in the region of late 20s, low 30s, which, you know, some of you out there will probably think, Red, Propagandist, that's not that bad really, is it? Come on now. It is for us in the UK, okay? We're not used to that kind of heat. We don't deal very well with it. But yes, sorry, I was going off on a tangent then. No, what I wanted to talk about really in this concluding section was just about a couple of things really that, well, just to signpost, you know, a couple of the key things really that we reacted to most of all within that chapter. Sorry, my webcam's doing its thing where it sometimes the lighting flashes. I don't know why it does that. It's a cheap budget webcam. One day I should probably actually invest in something that's, I don't know, a bit better. I should probably do that. No, but I think, you know, the two key things out of chapter 5 that are worth signposting really are, firstly, you know, Ruby's little characterisation moments throughout that in terms of her expression of that that need, perceived need to actually prove herself to everybody, probably because, like I say, you know, she's the youngest member of the group, and therefore probably feels like, you know, she's at sort of not a disadvantage, but maybe she feels kind of self-conscious in that sense. And like I say, you know, I think that's a common experience that a lot of people have in real life, and one of the reasons why probably RWBY actually is such a beloved character for many, you know, fans of this franchise. She's relatable in that sense. And of course the other, you know, big part of her little sort of very brief chat that she had with Weiss in that episode with the Deathstalker was obviously Weiss acknowledging that actually, you know what, maybe I am difficult to work with, maybe I do need to chill out a little bit. And obviously, you know, from what we know of Volume 1, that mellowing out of Weiss isn't going to happen immediately. It does take a little bit of time to actually happen, but we'll see that occurring, you know, particularly in chapter 6, once we get to that one as well. So yeah, you know, when you look over Volume 1, you can definitely see a trajectory with some of these characters in terms of they don't just change immediately, but you can sort of track the rate at which they evolve and change as characters. So that's obviously something else about Volume 1 that I always thought was very kind of interesting and all that. What else? What was the other freaking big point? But oh yeah, the combat scene, that was right. I've already forgotten what it was because I was distracting myself talking about other stuff. No, like I say, that combat sequence against the Nevermore, I think, is definitely a contender for my top 10 RWBY combat scenes across the whole franchise. I think because, you know, it being Volume 1 and this being the first instance of when the members of Team RWBY have been together and are fighting together, I imagine, you know, there was a real kind of pressure on the animation team and on the writers on Rooster Teeth's part to really make this quite a good standout fight sequence. because really I think it had to kind of put RWBY on the map, so to speak. It had to really sort of show that, you know, this is going to be a real heart-pounding, exciting franchise. And, you know, in that sense, I think they really did do a good job with it. Granted, you know, obviously, with Volume 1, there's always going to be elements of animation ropiness here and there. And sure, you know, even within that, you can tell it's, at this stage, you know, back in 2013 or whatever, it's still very much a new studio, still gaining experience, still learning the ropes, that kind of thing. But you know what? They did it with this one. They knocked it out of the park, and they did really, really well. So that's why, you know, ultimately, I say it's probably one of my standout combat sequences in RWBY as a whole, that fight. And definitely as a fight scene, I think, along with probably the opening fight scene between RWBY and Roman at the start of Volume 1, it's one of those things that really kind of grabbed my attention when I first started watching RWBY all those years ago, and it's the thing that kind of held my interest in it, and definitely ensured that I was going to come back and watch more of the show. So, some thoughts there on that fight sequence. So, I mean, yeah, those are the two main things within, you know, this particular chapter that I think are really sort of stand out within that. And, yeah, like I say, it's interesting particularly to get that sort of characterisation of RWBY and Weiss, most of all, because, you know, very much since, from the earliest episodes, their relationship has been set up to be a little antagonistic, so it's good to see, you know, that Rooster Teeth definitely appreciated that there was a need for them to immediately start addressing that relationship between them. Because that's the thing, you know, Weiss obviously in the early episodes of RWBY always has that slightly, dare I say, tsundere quality to her, in that, you know, she's outwardly quite bratty, quite sort of harsh, but then ultimately, you know, her sort of barriers break down, and actually you learn over time that she's actually very reliable, she's very kind, and she actually cares a lot for her teammates and all that. And that's the thing about sort of anime, I think, and animation more generally, for me personally. The thing about me and tsundere characters is I'm never really into them. I always find tsundere characters a bit tiring sometimes. But Weiss, I think, is the exception for me, because, you know, I've said repeatedly on many, many occasions how Weiss is my favourite character in RWBY. I love the character's visual design, I love her personality, I love her sort of character arc and trajectory, the sort of paths of development she goes down. And yet, the thing about like tsundere characters is, I always think that from a writing point of view, you know, if you are going to have a character who has tsundere traits, you need to develop that character very soon. You know, you can't sort of delay their characterization for too long. Because the problem with tsundere characters is, I always find this myself, is that very quickly you can reach a point where their sort of brattishness can become very grating and tiring. And you just get to a point where you think, whatever, go away, I'm not interested in you anymore. And, you know, as a writer, you don't want your audience to be reaching that kind of point where they just start, you know, losing interest in that character. So I think, you know, to Rooster Teeth's credit, they started developing Weiss early as a character, knowing probably that that sort of brattishness could get grating very, very quickly. And I'm glad they did. And it's one of the reasons why, ultimately, like I say, Weiss is one of my favourite characters, because she goes through that development, and that development starts to happen quite early. So as a result, you know, by Volume 2, she's becoming much more of a likeable and reliable character. So, yeah, that's more than anything a reflection probably of myself and my tastes in characters, particularly when it comes to characters with tsundere tendencies, to put it that way. Right, you know, I'm going sort of with thoughts so far for about 9 minutes roughly, which has been, you know, a decent amount of discussion there. As you can see, I've got myself another drink. It's a still lemonade, ladies and gentlemen. I was drinking tea before, but in this heat, the problem with tea is it makes you sweat and you just get hotter and hotter. So I decided I needed to get myself a nice cold drink, so I got myself a still lemonade with a bit of ice. Looking at time, I think I'll probably, after this, get recording Chapter 6 straight away. Chapter 6, I will see how I go with that one, because Chapter 6, I think, you know, very much, if I remember correctly, focuses on RWBY and Weiss, and particularly on Weiss and her sort of, you know, development trajectory. Then I think Chapter 7 after that starts to focus more on John, I believe, if I remember correctly. So I may, who knows, depending on how many thoughts I have and how often I pause throughout Chapter 6, it could be the case that Chapter 6 and 7 I start putting together, unless I start putting Chapter 7 together with other genre-centric episodes. I don't know, we'll see. So yeah, cheers ladies and gentlemen. Ooh, very tasty. Always like a good still, cloudy lemonade. Lovely drink. Along with a lemon iced tea. Right, I'm starting to ramble about random shit now, so let's not start going down a weird rabbit hole about cold drinks and all that. Thank you for joining me then, ladies and gentlemen, and hope you enjoyed this next RWBY reaction. Like I say, I think I'll keep Chapter 5 just in this one video, since, my post-chapter thoughts are running over 10 minutes and all that. So altogether, this is probably going to be quite a substantive video, somewhere in the region, I would imagine, of, 35, maybe as high as 40 minutes, something like that, which I think is good. So, yeah, a great chapter overall, definitely one of the standout ones of Volume 1, I would say. So I hope you enjoyed watching my reaction to that, my non-blind reaction, admittedly, and I hope you'll join me for Chapter 6 next time. So, usual outro spiel. If you're not already aware, of course, Propagandist is my second channel. My main channel is General Red Strategist, link in the video description. I do a lot of gaming content over on there, admittedly unoriginal, uninspired Let's Plays, among other things. But I do an eclectic range of games, horror, World War II games, platformers on occasion, occasionally RTS stuff, so there's all kinds of stuff over there. And I definitely want to do the RWBY video games, Grim Eclipse, Arrowfell, and even actually that fan-made, what's it called, JPDE, the visual novel. That actually also is something I'd love to play at some point. But, I'm sort of in two minds about whether I should do those on Strategist or whether I should do the RWBY stuff here on Propagandist. No, I feel like I should do, since it's gaming content, I should do it over on Strategist, since that's where I do a lot of my gaming stuff. But yeah, that's definitely something I want to do at some point, the RWBY game, so that might be in the sort of longer term future, ladies and gentlemen, after I've done my Let's Watches here on Propagandist and all that. Okay, yeah, other than that, thank you for joining me once again. Hope you'll join me for the next part, and I'll see you then. Goodbye, everybody.